Hey everybody, welcome to the Evangelist Nick Garrett channel. I've got two short stories for you from this day in church history, the end of October, about the 25th or 26th. First, let me tell you about the Whitmores from the year 1890. Sydney and Emma, boy, they had it all. They were rich. Money, servants, dinners, parties. Emma's wealth allowed her to admire herself in glittery dresses. Now, they moved and lived among the elite in New York City. They were unaware that anything was missing from their life. One afternoon, Emma's friend, Miss Kelly, persuaded her to go hear this Christian evangelist. Ironically, completely on his own, the husband, Sidney, had made plans to go. Neither knew that the other would be there. But they were both stirred by the message, and they ended up going down front, what was called the mourner's bench. Soon afterward, Miss Kelly urged Emma to visit a place called Water Street, where a man named Jerry McCulley, an ex-convict and recovered alcoholic, had opened a mission. So Sidney agreed to let Emma go if he could escort her through the rough part of town. So they get on the trolley car, they go down there, and she says, quote, "Never can that night be erased from my memory. From the time we got off the car at Roosevelt Street, each step opened up some new horror. She heard curses, quarreling, fighting, police abuse, women being dragged off to the station. As the meeting progressed, God got such possession of the Whitmores that they both sat in painful silence and were convicted of how useless their lives were. They said, quote, "We arose with a holy determination born of God himself to henceforth live for the glory and praise of God." One evening, Emma spent some time alone with God, earnestly inquiring what it is God wanted her to do. She said that suddenly the girls on the street came to her mind. But the thought of working with those wayward women terrified her. She thought, anything but that, but eventually she settled that that is what God wanted her to do. She often found the work unbearable and pleaded with God, but she was obedient and did it. She thought to herself that if the girls were to be rescued, homes would be needed. On this day, October 25th, 1890, Mother Whitmore's first Door of Hope opened. Within 4 years, the Door of Hope had helped 325 girls. Eventually, Door of Hope went international, and by Emma's death in 1931, there were 97 homes in 7 countries. That's a cool story. Now we're going back to the year 1180, and this is exciting because it starts out with King Henry II. England was beginning to find its monarchical stability. And he, at one time, was best friends with a man named Thomas Becket, who would later become the Archbishop. They aren't the subject of our story, but the subject of our story was a friend of both men who had a vantage in the middle and wrote a history that provides us so much important information about how people thought back then and what we know about them today. John Salisbury was an intimate friend of Pope Hadrian IV. He was well known to Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, one of the famous people who ended up calling the Second Crusade to the Holy Land when Edessa fell to Emir Zengi. John even sat at the feet and learned from the famed nominalist scholar Peter Abelard. He didn't accept everything Abelard taught uncritically, but he had served as secretary to 2 archbishops of Canterbury. Now, when Archbishop Thomas Becket and his friendship with Henry II fell apart, 4 knights came and ruthlessly murdered Archbishop Thomas Becket. And John was there, and he was injured, and he wrote about the account firsthand. His close association with Becket caused him trouble, though, with Henry II. Even before his master was exiled by Henry II to the continent, France, at the time England and France had co-rulership and there were intermarrying in the dynasties, John was forced abroad. And John thought Becket was tactless and rude in his dealings with the king and urged moderation. Obviously, that didn't work since he was slaughtered. Now, Let's get to the book that John Salisbury wrote. And I want to read to you exactly what he had to say, because he, like Niccolo Machiavelli later with the book The Prince, gives us an observation of politics at the time and how religion influenced it. He was a scholar, and he got much of his renown in his own day. He was a strong advocate of Aristotelian logic. He wrote a lot on that subject. He also developed a political theory which prefigured later works such as Lex Rex by Samuel Rutherford. John argued that a king is restrained by God's laws and may be executed if he disobeys those laws. This can even be viewed as a precursor to democracy, because the concept is there that there are God's laws, therefore natural rights. John's good sense is obvious when he writes against follies such as witchcraft, astrology, and even the interpretation of dreams. Yes, certain men in the Bible interpret dreams, but they also were able to report what the dream was that they interpreted. If there be any who enjoy such special favor, John said, let him join Daniel or Joseph, and like them attribute it to the Lord. But for him who the Spirit of truth has not illuminated, it is vain to place trust in the art, since every art has its source in nature and its development in experience and reason. He argues that experience and reason are so undependable in these matters. He concludes that the most effective remedy for nonsense is to embrace the true faith and refuse to listen to such lies. Never give thought to follies or inanities of the sort. Now, John Salisbury was a talented historian, theologian, and writer. My reason for writing those things for you, you can see the superstition in his work. You can see how at that time Christianity was almost used as a tool of fear in some ways to counteract the realities of life. If we can't answer it, just don't even question it, right? And it's interesting. So there's a lot more to this story, but I want to keep the video short. So on this day, late October 25th, 26th of 1180, we remember John Salisbury, who wrote for us the relationship between Henry II and Archbishop Thomas Becket, and left us a lot more information to read from. Thanks for being with me, friends. God bless you. As always, may your work today bear fruit. Thanks.